Wars are remembered for tanks and generals, but victory often depended on those the world could not see. When the Second World War erupted, Europe's streets filled with soldiers, uniforms, and propaganda. Yet behind the noise of marching boots, another battle stirred quietly in the shadows. Women, underestimated for centuries, stepped into roles never imagined for them. They carried no rifles, commanded no battalions, but they smuggled secrets, planted explosives, and delivered hope under occupation. Their battlefields were kitchens, alleyways, and village roads. Their strength was invisibility, their courage measured in silence under interrogation, their victories often left unmarked. As bombs fell and empires clashed, these women rewrote the definition of resistance. They were not waiting for history to grant them recognition. They carved their names in whispers and risks. This is their story, hidden, defiant, and unrelenting. London in 1939 was a city holding its breath. Buses rattled down crowded streets, shopkeepers opened shutters as if life were normal, and newspapers screamed of looming war, but not yet destruction. Beneath that fragile normalcy, preparations thickened like fog. Secret rooms in Whitehall buzzed with urgency as Britain formed the Special Operations Executive known simply as the So-Tasked, with sabotage, espionage, and fueling resistance across Nazi-occupied Europe. Unthinkably for the time, women were recruited alongside men. Some were aristocrats with perfect manners and fluent French. Others were refugees who had escaped Nazi terror and craved revenge. What they shared was an oath whispered during recruitment, to risk capture, torture, and death without the world ever knowing their names. Their stories would remain in the margins for decades, but in 1939, they stepped forward without hesitation. The shadows were waiting. "Women won't be suspected," an SOE officer remarked with quiet certainty. And indeed, this became their greatest advantage. A young woman carrying a basket through a French market would pass unseen, while a man in his 20s risked arrest at every corner. A mother pushing a prom could conceal maps beneath blankets. Secretary in a German office could steal documents and walk away unnoticed. Society's underestimation became a weapon, yet this cloak of invisibility was fragile, if caught. Women faced not the protections of soldiers but the fury reserved for traitors. There were no Geneva Conventions, only Gestapo basements, chains, and execution grounds. Still, thousands stepped forward. To them, invisibility was not weakness, it was power. It's power to carry a nation's secrets in a hemline, or to change the course of a battle with a few whispered words. The first assignments looked deceptively harmless. Courier might be asked to pedal across town with a note hidden in her shoe, or memorize the arrival of German trains. But every task carried the weight of a battlefield. Picture a 20-year-old woman cycling down a country road, the silence broken only by the distant thrum of German trucks. In her dress, hem lies a coded message that could alter Allied strategy. A single checkpoint, a glance that lingers too long, and it is over, not just for her, but for the network behind her. Couriers mastered the art of calm performance, rehearsing excuses about visiting family or attending mass. Their entire war was fought in seconds of eye contact, in the tremor of a voice, in a smile that concealed terror. This was resistance in its purest, most fragile form. But not every heroine wore London's training badge. Across occupied Europe, women resisted because they had no other choice. In Warsaw, mothers smuggled food to starving ghettos while carrying hidden weapons beneath their skirts. In Paris, teachers handed out clandestine newspapers between lessons. In Amsterdam, teenage girls acted as couriers, slipping past checkpoints with letters tucked under their blouses. They were untrained, unpaid, and often anonymous, yet their courage was as sharp as any soldier's. If not me, then who? I code in their minds each time they left home. Their kitchens became safe houses. Their classrooms turned into propaganda hubs. Their youth was spent not on dreams, but on defiance. They had no illusions of glory. It's only survival, freedom, and dignity mattered. And for those, they would gamble everything. The Gestapo feared them. Invisible networks, stitched together by women, gnawed at the Nazi grip on Europe. German officers stalked occupied streets, their boots pounding cobblestones like warning drums. Every leaflet that appeared overnight, every unexplained train derailment, was proof of an enemy they could not see. Women caught in this net faced horrors unfit for words. Interrogations shattered bones, cells froze their bodies, and executions silenced their names. Some, broken by agony, revealed secrets. Others clenched their jaws in silence, protecting comrades even as their own lives slipped away. For the enemy, these women were ghosts that refused to vanish. For other people, they were lifelines of hope. The question was not whether they were brave enough. The question was how long courage could survive under such crushing darkness. Among the most extraordinary was Nooranya Yetkan. She was no hardened soldier, but a quiet woman raised on music and fairy tales, the daughter of an Indian mystic and an American mother. In 1943, she became Britain's first female wireless operator dropped into France. Her mission was almost suicidal: transmit intelligence from Paris while evading Gestapo vans that scoured the streets with radio detectors. Each broadcast was a race against discovery, 15 minutes to send, then vanish before the signal could be traced. Noor's heart pounded with every tap of her Morse key, yet she never wavered. Even after her network collapsed and colleagues were captured, she remained in the field, transmitting alone. "I must carry on," she whispered to herself.
Ow.
In that resolve, her fragile frame carried the weight of an empire's hope. Noor was not an exception. In Poland, Krystyna Skarbek-Better, known as Christine Granville, outwitted Nazis with wit as sharp as a blade. Fluent in languages and fearless in spirit, she once bluffed her way out of arrest by convincing officers she was too valuable to kill. In Belgium, 20-year-old André Dijon led Allied pilots across the Pyrenees, her slight figure guiding them through mountains under the nose of German patrols. In France, countless unnamed women smuggled bullets under loaves of bread, maps beneath laundry, and fugitives in attics. Their stories rarely reached headlines, but their deeds reverberated. These were not passive figures waiting for rescue, they were architects of resistance. Their hands, calloused from labor or softened by aristocracy, all carried the same burden. Freedom demanded action, and action demanded sacrifice. But for every victory, punishment fell like thunder. German forces retaliated, with merciless efficiency, 10 villagers executed for one act of sabotage, entire families deported for hiding a courier. Resistance meant not only risking your own life, but gambling the lives of neighbors. Mothers sent their daughters on missions, kissing them goodbye with silent prayers they would return. Fathers guarded agents in their homes, knowing betrayal could bring execution squads. Every decision carved new scars. To resist was to accept grief as a companion, to live with goodbyes spoken too often. These women bore the dual weight of fighters and mourners, their strength measured not only in bravery, but in the endurance of heartbreak. Survival was never guaranteed. Only conviction remained unshaken. By 1941, the hidden war had become a lifeline. Information smuggled by couriers shaped Allied decisions. Acts of sabotage disrupted German supply lines. Underground presses kindled hope in cities where hope was forbidden. Women's roles were undeniable, their courage essential. But with their growing effectiveness came new danger. The Gestapo's hunt intensified, their traps closing tighter around every whisper, every broadcast, every stolen paper. The walls of occupied Europe seemed to shrink. And soon the most remarkable heroines, those who carried not just messages, but entire movements, would face betrayal, capture, and agonizing choices. Their next battles would not be against guns or bombs, but against the very limits of human endurance. The shadows were never safer than they seemed. As 1941 unfolded, Europe's occupied territories grew darker and more oppressive. Every act of resistance carried a heightened risk. Women couriers pedaled along empty country lanes under the cover of night, hearts hammering against ribs, the silhouettes of German patrols casting long shadows across their paths. Documents sewn into dresses or strapped beneath shoes contained intelligence that could save hundreds of lives or doom them. Mothers whispered instructions to daughters, fully aware that capture could mean not just death, but public execution meant to terrorize entire communities. Each delivery was a calculated gamble. The wrong turn, a delay, a random checkpoint, and months of planning could vanish in an instant. Yet these women pressed onward, propelled by courage, necessity, and the knowledge that behind every shadow lay a life waiting for their bravery. Among the most cunning operatives was Krystyna Skarbek, or Christine Granville. Her exploits in Poland and France became legendary in resistance circles. Fluent in multiple languages and possessing an uncanny ability to read people, she slipped past checkpoints, outsmarted Gestapo agents, and smuggled weapons and money to struggling cells. Once cornered in a German-controlled city, she convinced officers she was a lowly shop assistant returning home, bluffing with such confidence that they let her walk. Behind that audacious smile lay relentless courage and an acute understanding of human psychology. Her life was one of constant calculation. Each decision, each word, each glance could tip the balance between freedom and execution. Christine's story exemplifies the razor-thin line between survival and disaster that countless women navigated daily. Resistance was not confined to spies trained by the SOE. Ordinary women became lifelines in ways both small and monumental. In Belgium, André de Jong guided Allied pilots across snow-capped Pyrenees mountains into safety, her tiny frame carrying the weight of terrified men who had just survived being shot down. In occupied France, countless women concealed weapons beneath aprons, transported messages sewn into quilts, and delivered food to families living in fear. Each journey demanded composure, courage, and precision. A slip, a pause, a quiver in a voice could expose networks and destroy lives. Yet for these women, the alternative in action was unacceptable. Their courage transformed the mundane into acts of defiance, and everyday life became a battlefield where survival hinged on resourcefulness and nerves of steel. The psychological toll was immense. Women couriers and operatives faced constant fear, yet could not show it. They witnessed atrocities, burned villages, executed families, children orphaned overnight, carried that horror in silence. Some wrote letters to loved ones they might never see again, sealing them in envelopes that might never reach their destination. The weight of responsibility pressed down relentlessly. Sleep was rare, suspicion everywhere. And yet amidst terror, moments of human connection glimmered. A stolen smile between resistance members, a shared loaf of bread with a frightened family, a whispered reassurance under moonlight. These fleeting gestures reminded women why they endured. Courage became as much about the spirit as the body, and every heartbeat of fear was transformed into resilience. Espionage, however, was only one facet of their contribution. Women also acted as saboteurs, setting fire to supply depots, derailing trains, and destroying communications lines vital to the Nazi war machine. They moved like ghosts, leaving no trace but chaos for the enemy to decipher. In these acts, the stakes were never abstract. Capture could mean death. Betrayal could mean a dozen lives lost. In one daring operation, a young French operative disguised as a village seamstress disrupted a supply convoy that was feeding frontline German troops. Every nerve she had was tested. Every glance from a passing soldier could be fatal, yet she persisted, embodying the quiet, deadly efficiency that defined women in the resistance. Her success reverberated far beyond the village, proving that courage need not roar, it could whisper, strike, and vanish. Communication remained critical. Radio operators like Norin faced relentless danger. Her small Parisian apartment became a hub of coded signals sent across the channel to London. Gestapo vans prowled the streets, equipped with devices designed to pinpoint her exact location. Every broadcast was a pulse of defiance, but also a heartbeat closer to potential capture. Nor worked with precision, aware that mistakes were fatal. Yet she continued, sending intelligence that guided Allied bombers, informed sabotage missions, and kept hope alive in France. Her persistence reflected the paradox of resistance. Every message carried life and death simultaneously, requiring nerve, skill, and unwavering commitment to a cause far greater than oneself. Fear intertwined with hope, across-occupied cities, women balanced terror and inspiration. Couriers watched over frightened children, hiding them in attics or cellars. Mothers carried letters, sometimes forged identity papers, sometimes instructions for escape, whispering reassurances while hearts raced. Each day was a delicate performance. Smiles, gestures, and casual glances had to hide the storm beneath. Done, the very act of ordinary living became a statement of defiance. Resistance was not a single action, but a sustained rhythm of courage pedaling down a country road, delivering messages, comforting the terrified, and persevering when despair threatened to overwhelm. Every small act accumulated into monumental impact. Not every story ended in victory. Betrayal, capture, and execution were constant threats. Networks collapsed when a courier was intercepted, when an apartment was raided, or when trust was misplaced. Yet even in these tragedies, women inspired others. Their sacrifices became silent lessons in resilience. For example, after Christine Granville was forced to flee Belgium under threat of capture, new operatives filled her place, carrying forward her mission with renewed determination. The continuity of resistance depended not on a single hero, but on the collective courage of many women willing to risk everything for others. Each act, though invisible, shaped the outcome of the war. As Allied operations expanded, the work of women behind enemy lines grew more complex. They not only transported information and people, but also coordinated attacks, identified collaborators, and maintained secret communication networks. Their intelligence allowed the Allies to anticipate movements, target supply lines, and save thousands of lives. The line between life and death was measured in whispers, footfalls, and signals across rooftops. Every successful mission brought relief and momentum.
Ow.
Every failure brought grief and loss. Yet even as pressure mounted, women persisted, their actions rippling through Europe like hidden currents that strengthened the tide of resistance. By the end of this period, the stakes had never been higher. Couriers, saboteurs, and spies faced the constant specter of betrayal, yet their courage did not falter. Their bravery reshaped the war's narrative, demonstrating that ordinary individuals could wield extraordinary influence. The networks they maintained, often at unimaginable personal cost, were instrumental in sustaining hope and enabling liberation. The price of courage is never small. By 1942, resistance networks were under immense strain. Gestapo agents had intensified their searches, infiltration had become common, and the risk of betrayal was ever present. Women working as couriers or operatives faced sleepless nights and constant vigilance. Each mission carried the weight of entire communities. One captured message could unravel months of planning, yet they continued, cycling across forests and rivers, hiding in barns and attics, delivering intelligence that would save lives. Their courage was measured not by medals, but by survival against near impossible odds. Behind every quiet smile or casual gesture was a mind racing, calculating, anticipating danger, and preparing to sacrifice everything for freedom. Noor and Nia Khan's radio transmissions became increasingly perilous. She transmitted vital intelligence for months from Paris while hunted by relentless Gestapo teams. Her apartment, once a sanctuary, became a potential death trap. Friends were captured one by one, yet she continued to send coded messages, each dot and dash a heartbeat of resistance. Her calm demeanor concealed terror, and each broadcast brought hope to London and danger to herself.
Noor's
Resolve exemplified the paradox of wartime espionage. The closer you got to achieving a goal, the closer death seemed. Her courage inspired others, proving that resistance was as much about mental fortitude as physical skill. Meanwhile, Christine Granville executed daring sabotage missions across occupied Europe. She destroyed ammunition depots, misdirected troop convoys, and carried vital funds to under-resourced cells. Every mission demanded improvisation under pressure. Once, when confronted at a border post, she convinced German officers she was delivering a sick child to relatives, bluffing her way to freedom. Her audacity was matched only by her empathy. She treated civilians and fellow agents with care, even amidst chaos. Granville embodied the duality of the resistance, ruthless in operations yet deeply human in interactions. Each act of courage and kindness amplified morale, showing that the resistance was not only a fight against occupation, but a struggle to preserve humanity in the face of brutality. The psychological burden on these women was immense. They witnessed atrocities daily, families executed for harboring fugitives, villages razed for sabotage, children orphaned overnight. Many wrote letters never sent, documenting grief, fear, and fleeting hope. Their nights were restless, minds replaying every interaction for potential misstep. And yet, amid terror, moments of tenderness emerge, shared bread, whispered encouragement, a hand on a trembling shoulder. Resistance was as much an emotional battle as a physical one. Each heartbeat carried fear, but also resolve, and every act of defiance reinforced that courage was not the absence of fear, but persistence despite it. Women also coordinated the rescue of downed Allied airmen. In France and Belgium, young operatives escorted pilots across mountains and forests to neutral territories. Every footstep was fraught with danger. Patrols, informants, and rough terrain turned simple movement into life-or-death gambles. Couriers guided frightened men with reassuring words, careful timing, and intimate knowledge of local terrain. These operations required discipline, quick thinking, and nerves of steel. For the men being rescued, these women were angels in disguise. The women themselves, each successful extraction was a momentary victory against an enemy that threatened to consume everything. Tragedy, however, was never far behind. Networks collapsed when a single courier was intercepted or a safe house discovered. Some women were executed. Others survived only to endure long imprisonment. The pain of losing comrades weighed heavily, yet each loss reinforced the importance of persistence. New recruits stepped forward to replace the fallen, and the machinery of resistance continued to turn, powered by sheer determination and courage. This relentless cycle danger, loss, recovery defined the hidden war women waged daily, proving that resilience was the greatest weapon against oppression. In Belgium, Undri de Jong became a symbol of hope for airmen trapped behind enemy lines. Her journeys through snow-laden mountains, leading terrified pilots across treacherous passes, were feats of precision and nerve. Each night she navigated without maps, guided by stars and instinct, balancing fear and determination. One wrong move could mean capture or death for herself and those she guided. Yet she persisted, driven by empathy and a fierce commitment to freedom. Her courage exemplified the intersection of daring action and moral responsibility, illustrating how ordinary individuals could achieve extraordinary feats when stakes were highest. The work of couriers and spies was invisible, yet indispensable. Underground newspapers spread hope and information where propaganda dominated. Hidden networks moved food, medicine, and intelligence across borders and towns. Each seemingly mundane act delivering a package, whispering a message, carrying a note could alter the course of battle. Women transformed everyday life into an arena of resistance, where courage was measured not in weapons, but in wit, discretion, and perseverance. Even in despair, their actions sent ripples across Europe, demonstrating that ordinary people could confront tyranny with extraordinary impact. The cost of this hidden war was deeply personal. Many women returned from missions physically unharmed but mentally scarred, carrying trauma that would last a lifetime. Sleep was haunted by memories of captured friends, villages burned, and the screams of innocence. Some lost family, lovers, or mentors in the chaos of war, and yet in their pain they found meaning. The fight was not only for survival, but for the preservation of hope, freedom, and dignity. Resistance had become a moral imperative, binding them to a cause greater than themselves. Each action, each risk, each heartbeat of courage was a testament to human resilience. By the end of this phase, women in the resistance had proved indispensable to the Allied war effort. Their intelligence, sabotage, and courage had saved countless lives, disrupted enemy operations, and inspired hope in occupied territories. Yet the shadows were closing in, betrayals were mounting, and the threat of capture or execution grew daily. The stage was set for the most harrowing trials of their lives, moments that would test not only skill and bravery, but the very limits of endurance, morality, and spirit. The final trials were the harshest. By 1943-44, Gestapo and occupying forces had intensified their hunt for resistance operatives. Women who had survived months of perilous missions now faced the terrifying reality of capture. Safe houses were raided, networks betrayed, and silent whispers of betrayal echoed through occupied streets. Some were imprisoned, tortured, and executed. Others endured solitary confinement and interrogation. Yet even in the darkest cells, courage persisted. Letters written in secret, coded messages carved into walls, and quiet acts of defiance reminded both captors and captives that the human spirit could not be entirely extinguished. These women became living symbols of resistance, embodying resilience in its most raw and inspiring form. Noura Niyet Khan was eventually captured in Paris. Her fate was cruel, yet her legacy endured. Even in prison, she refused to divulge information, protecting countless fellow operatives. A quiet bravery, the rhythm of Morse code transmissions sent under constant threat. And her unwavering resolve became stories of legend. In her final days, Noor carried hope for others, demonstrating that courage is often quiet, invisible, yet infinitely powerful. She became a reminder that true heroism is measured not by survival alone, but by the willingness to sacrifice for something far greater than oneself. Her story echoed across occupied Europe, inspiring both contemporaries and generations to come. In the forests and mountains, Undri de Jong and other operatives continued guiding pilots and refugees to safety. Each journey was a perilous blend of cunning, endurance, and empathy. Mistakes could lead to death. Success meant survival for many. The network of couriers, spies, and saboteurs functioned like a living organism. Resilient yet fragile, with women as its beating heart. Their tireless efforts, often at immense personal cost, kept hope alive. Every rescued pilot, every message delivered, and every sabotage operation completed was a silent testament to their skill and bravery. The war was testing not only physical endurance but moral courage, and these women faced it with unmatched determination. Resistance work took a psychological toll that lasted far beyond the battlefield. Many women returned home with invisible scars, carrying trauma from witnessing atrocities, losing comrades, and living under constant threat. Sleep was haunted, memories replayed endlessly, and ordinary life often felt surreal. Yet even in the aftermath, the lessons endured. Their courage, perseverance, and empathy became legacies passed to the post-war generation. They showed that the cost of freedom is high, but the reward a world in which humanity can endure is priceless. The war tested their bodies, minds, and hearts, but also revealed the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. The contribution of women to the resistance reshaped history. Their intelligence gathering, sabotage, and courier work directly influenced Allied strategies, saving countless lives and tipping the balance of operations. Yet their stories were often overlooked in post-war narratives, hidden in shadows like the roles they played. From classrooms to kitchens, from forests to safe houses, they carried immense responsibility without expectation of recognition. Their bravery challenged societal norms and redefined what it meant to fight, not with guns or tanks alone, but with courage, cunning, and an unbreakable will. History remembers battles and generals, but these women shaped victory from the shadows. Even after the war, the impact of their work was deeply personal. Survivors struggled with reintegration into societies that could not fully comprehend their experiences. Many kept their missions secret, living quiet lives while carrying immense pride and trauma. Letters, diaries, and memoirs later revealed the depth of their sacrifice. They had navigated a world where every step could be fatal, every act could be the last, and yet they continued. Their stories revealed that heroism is not always loud, often invisible, and yet profoundly transformative. They became examples of endurance, courage, and moral fortitude, inspiring generations to confront challenges with unwavering resolve. The war left indelible marks on occupied societies. Families, communities, and nations bore scars of loss, fear, and displacement. Yet the hidden networks of women ensured that hope persisted. Underground newspapers, sabotage missions, and rescue operations kept alive the possibility of liberation. Their actions were a beacon amid darkness, demonstrating that even in oppression, small acts of courage can ripple into monumental change. Children who survived learned from these heroines the meaning of resilience. Communities rebuilt not just physically but morally, guided by the invisible hands of women who had risked everything for freedom. Legacy was another battlefield. Recognition of these women came slowly, often decades later, yet their impact transcended medals or honors. Their courage inspired post-war movements, influenced gender roles, and transformed the way societies perceive bravery. Across Europe, stories of Noura Niyet Khan, Christine Granville, Undri de Jong, and countless unnamed women became teaching tools for resilience, courage, and moral responsibility. They demonstrated that heroism is not limited to those in uniform. It resides in anyone willing to confront danger for the greater good. Their shadows, once hidden, became guiding lights. As the war ended, reflection took hold. The world had witnessed destruction, terror, and inhumanity, but also acts of extraordinary courage. Women who had risked their lives for resistance emerged as symbols of moral and physical fortitude. Their experiences highlight the complex interplay of fear, hope, sacrifice, and resilience. They remind us that bravery is often invisible, that freedom is secured not only through combat, but also through courage, wit, and perseverance. Their stories compel us to honor the unseen, to remember that every act of courage, no matter how small, can shape the course of history. The shadows of the past illuminate the present. Women of the resistance proved that courage, resilience, and sacrifice define humanity at its best. Their lives inspire us to face adversity with determination and to protect freedom at every cost. As we remember these hidden heroines, let their legacy guide us. In every dark corner, bravery can shine and hope can endure.